So usually I do this a little different, but today I want to make things simple. My name is Josiah, and today I'll be your narrator. Not the kind that tells bedtime stories, the kind that drags out history out the shadows and forces you to look at it dead in the eyes. Today we're going to talk about the Black experience, not the watered down version they squeeze into the school chapter every February. I'm talking about the rage, the survival, and the philosophy born from pressure. We'll talk about the Black Panther Party, a group remembered by some as heroes and by others a threat, because history has a strange habit of calling Black people dangerous the moment they stop begging and start organizing. We'll talk about the Boondocks, a cartoon that wasn't really a cartoon. It was a mirror, one that reflected racism, class, division, ignorance, and most of all, performative activism, and the uncomfortable truth about America itself. Characters like Huey Freeman understood something most people don't. Awareness is isolating the moment you begin to question the world around you. You also begin to separate yourself from the people comfortable sleeping inside it. And philosophy, that's the weapon underneath all of this. The study of power, human nature, fear, control, discipline, and revolution. The eternal battle between becoming a free thinker. This isn't just a history lesson. It's an autopsy of society. And trust me, the body's still warm. Fred Hampton understood something dangerous. Not dangerous to the people, dangerous to the system. See, a real revolutionary doesn't just scream. He organizes, feeds children before school, builds unity between poor people, teaches discipline, teaches self-respect, teaches people to stop seeing each other as enemies and start seeing the machine above them. That's why Fred Hampton was feared, not because he carried anger, because he carried influence. And every movement that rises from truth eventually attracts another creature, the informant, the man with two faces, the smile that never reaches the soul, the one who adapts to every room like the survival is his only religion. Around revolutionaries, he sounds revolutionary. Around enemies, he sounds obedient. Around truth, he pretends to stand for it. But in darkness, he belongs to whoever benefits him the most. That's the thing about chameleons. People mistake them for masterminds, but most aren't intelligent. They're hollow, no code, no identity, no principles, strong enough to survive pressure without changing color. And history's filled with them. Movements destroyed from inside by people who master imitation instead of conviction. Because sometimes the greatest threat to a movement isn't the enemy standing in front of it. It's the man standing beside it, pretending to belong. And that leads us to the real question. How do you kill a chameleon? A chameleon survives by becoming whatever surrounds it. Different face for every room. Different morals for every crowd. Different voice depending on who holds the power. People call that intelligence. They call it strategy. They call it playing the game. But let's just call it for what it is. It's fear. Because a person who truly knows themselves doesn't need to shapeshift every time the world changes temperature. The chameleon is not dangerous because it adapts. No, it's dangerous because after years of pretending, it forgets who it really was. And the saddest part, most people don't portray others first. They portray themselves. Before the world feared the image of the Black Panther, there was a man studying law books with a shotgun in one hand and a political theory in the other. Huey P. Newton understood something most people never will. Power respects power. Not loud words, not empty promises, power. He grew up watching police occupy Black neighborhoods like enemy territory, watching poverty become normal, watching fear become law. So alongside Bobby Seale, he helped create the Black Panther Party, not as a symbol of hate, as a declaration that Black people had the right to defend themselves, educate themselves, feed themselves, and control their own communities. And that's why part of history tries to skip. People remember the guns, but forget the free breakfast programs, the health clinics, the education, and the political awareness. The Black Panther Party wasn't just men in black berets holding rifles. That's the image America memorized. But history gets real selective when Black people start reading laws and feeding children. Founded by Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale in 1966, the Panthers studied police behavior, monitored brutality, and open free breakfast programs, health clinics, and schools and neighborhoods the system abandoned. See, that's the part they don't talk about enough. A government that can tolerate anger, but what it fears is discipline. Once people become educated, fed, and united,
They stopped begging to survive. They start questioning why survival was denied in the first place. When people talk about black history, they usually start with slavery. That's the first lie. Because before chains, there were empires, scholars, warriors, architects, kings whose wealth reshaped entire economies. One of them was Mansa Musa, a man many historians consider the richest person to ever live. Not millionaire rich, not billionaire rich. Empire rich, rich in blackness. Mansa Musa controlled major trade routes across West Africa. Gold, salt, resources the world depended on at the time when the Mali Empire produced an enormous portion of the world's gold supply. But wealth wasn't the only thing that made him powerful. Knowledge did too. During his famous pilgrimage to the Mecca, he traveled with thousands of soldiers and servants and caravans carrying gold. And when he returned home, he invested into education, architecture, and Islamic scholarship. Under his rule, cities became centers of learning filled with libraries, universities, mathematicians, scientists, and scholars. That's the part they don't show enough. Black history is not just pain, it is civilization, innovation, discipline, and influence. People look at Huey Freeman and think he's just an angry kid in a cartoon. But Huey was never written to entertain comfortable people. He was written to expose them. Inspired by revolutionaries, political thinkers, and the spirit of young black radicals, Huey represented the curse of awareness.
What do you do when you can't do nothing, but there's nothing you can do?
You do what you can.
Some people got money but no peace. Some got power but no purpose. Some got laws but no justice. And some got nothing except each other. That's why Fred Hampton said power anywhere where there's people. Not black power alone, not white power. People power. Because hunger don't care what color you are. Corruption don't care what side you vote on. In the same systems that teaches you one man to hate another, profits from both of them saying divided. If poor people, working people, forgotten people ever recognize themselves in each other instead of against each other, the whole game changes. So when we say power to the people, we mean all people. People crushed by greed, people silenced by fear. People taught they're too different to stand together, and maybe that unity is the one thing they feared the most.
Your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding. It is the bitter potion by which the physician within you heals your sick self.
They told you pain was something to avoid, something to numb, something to escape, something to hide. But pain isn't the enemy. Pain is the message. See, most people want healing without the process that comes with it. They want clarity without ever confronting the confusion. They want peace without ever facing what's disturbing them. That's not healing. That's avoidance. Through my writings, I've come to the conclusion that pain isn't the breaking of the shell that limits your understanding. It creates comfort, exposes your illusions, forces you to see what you've been trying not to see. And yeah, it's bitter. It doesn't feel good. It's not supposed to. But neither is the medicine. Medicine is often bitter. Inside you, there's something most people ignore. The quiet voice. A physician, not emotional, not loud. Just honest.
I mean, everything we see is a false reality.
Huey Freeman was never angry. He was aware. You ever notice Huey Freeman was the only one who wasn't laughing? Not because he couldn't laugh, but because he understands the joke and realized he was living it. See, Huey wasn't crazy. He was what happens when awareness shows up too early and innocence doesn't survive the meeting. Most people don't want truth. They want comfort. They want distraction. They want something to scroll. Something to watch, something to numb the quiet voice inside them that keeps asking, is this really who I'm supposed to be? Huey asked this question every day. That's why he couldn't fit in. Because once you see the system, once you see the manipulation, once you see how people trade their freedom for approval, you can't unsee it. You're in a room full of people and you realize nobody else is actually there. They're just performing, all according to plan.
It seems to be getting harder. Distinguishing reality from the illusions people make for us, or from the ones we make for ourselves.
Huey understood something most people never will. The world rewards obedience more than truth. The loudest voices get heard, the realest voices get ignored, and the strongest people, they suffer in silence. Because they know complaining doesn't change reality, only action does. But here's the curse. Awareness doesn't automatically give you power. First, it gives you pain, because now you see your potential. And you see how far you are from it. You see the distractions. You see your own excuses. You see the version of yourself you can become, watching you, judging you, waiting. Huey was a kid, carrying the weight of a man who already knew. The world doesn't care about your feelings, only results, only your discipline, only your ability to stand alone. So the question isn't why was Huey so serious? The real question is, why aren't you?